demystifying the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. But what really does it mean? What does the word demystifying mean? What's the point of this event? Why are we here? Well, it's quite simple. This is a conflict that's raged over the last 60 years throughout the international community. The United Nations has taken a stab at solving it, the US, the EU, every party that's ever held a power or invested interest in the world. We currently have seen this generation of ours, or I guess our parents' generation, come out, they've tried it, they haven't been able to succeed yet. We haven't seen peace in the Middle East, we haven't seen a peaceful state of Palestine, a state of Israel, a peace in the Middle East, something that's sustainable, something that rests both the region's interests to rest, as well as our interests as the United States to rest in the region. Since our parents haven't been able to do it, it obviously means that we're up next. The same USF students that are sitting next to you, to your right and to your left, are going to be the same people that one day are going to take their place on the world stage to solve these same conflicts that our parents couldn't. Previous generations haven't been able to do it, so the responsibility is now ours. How do you solve a problem, though, especially if you don't know what the problem is? Well, you can look at the media, you can look at the press, you can Google an item, you can see what you see about it, you can see pictures, read articles, but in the end, you really need to know the entire conflict to see it. Obviously, some of the organizations here today, the Muslim Student Association, Latin American Student Association, the African Student Association, USF Project Downtown, and of course Student Government, who has made this a student government signature event, all feel that there is a need for dialogue, there is a need for conversation. You solve problems by talking about it, by examining it from all points of views, from all the different angles that you're faced with. That is the aim of this event today. That is the aim of this entire week, where we started with a screening of a documentary, Occupation 101, and thank you to everybody who came out and attended that event. And we ended today with a lecture by a renowned academic and author who hopefully will take us through this conversation, who will show us the different aspects that we don't see every day on the news. We don't see it on CNN, we don't see it on Fox News, you might not read it on your blog, but it's on the ground, it's facts, it's information. That if you want to solve the issue of the future, you need to know what that issue is. You need to know the past and the present, and hopefully the same people that are here that benefit from this dialogue and discussion today will take us to that future. At this time, I want to go ahead and introduce Ms. Zaida Abdelaziz, who's going to go ahead and introduce a little bit of the program today, and of course our guest speaker. So,
good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. Before we welcome Dr. Finkelstein, I'd like to tell you all a little about this great man. Dr. Norman Finkelstein received his doctorate in 1988 from the Department of Politics at Princeton University. For many years, he taught political theory and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Finkelstein is the author of 6 books, which have been translated into more than 40 foreign editions, including Beyond Chutzpah, on the misuse of anti-Semitism and the abuse of history, and the Holocaust Industry, Reflections on the Exploitation of Jewish Suffering. He has just completed a new book entitled This Time We Went Too Far, Truth and Consequences of the Gaza Invasion. It is now my pleasure to welcome to the University of South Florida, one of the greatest American political scientists of our time, Dr. Norman Finkelstein.
between December 27th, 2008 and January 18th, 2009. To some extent, it might be a curiosity why I'm even talking about Gaza, because already nearly a month and a half has elapsed since those 22 days. And wars, death, destruction come with such rapidity and such frequency in the Middle East that why a year and a half, nearly a year and a half after the Israeli invasion, why are we still talking about it? But it is true that Gaza won't go away. It's a ghost which, however much Israel tries, refuses to be buried. It's a shadow which Israel is unable to evade. And one of our points of inquiry this evening, I think, ought to be, what made Gaza different? Why won't Gaza go away? Why is it as fresh now in the news as it was some 16 months ago? Before I look at what happened in Gaza, I want to quickly look at the background, what led up to the Israeli invasion. In January 2006, there were parliamentary elections in the occupied Palestinian territories. And the Islamic movement, Hamas, unexpectedly won those elections. Former President Jimmy Carter was among the international observers at those elections. He called them completely honest and fair. In reaction to these completely honest and fair elections, Israel, backed by the United States, imposed economic sanctions on the people of Gaza. In mid-2007, the United States, working alongside Israel and some elements among the Palestinian Authority, attempted a coup to overthrow the legally elected government, namely the Hamas government. In the United States, that's called democracy promotion. The government, the Hamas government, reacted by sending the Palestinian elements packing, and then the United States and Israel tightened the blockade of Gaza, a blockade which Amnesty International now called a flagrant violation of international law, a blockade which Richard Goldstone, to whom I'll return later, the mission that Richard Goldstone led, called a possible crime against humanity. The former UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Mary Robinson, she journeyed to Gaza during these months, and she said, and now I'm quoting her, Gaza's whole civilization has been destroyed. I'm not exaggerating. Its whole civilization has been destroyed. In June 2008, Hamas and Israel entered into a ceasefire that was brokered by the Egyptian government. And each side had obligations under the ceasefire. The Palestinians, Hamas, they had to stop their rocket and mortar attacks on Israel. And the Israelis, they had to gradually lift the blockade of Gaza. The blockade which was a flagrant violation of international law. The blockade